I'm gonna admit her. Beth, how are you doing?
Well, and yourself?
Good, good. Thanks for being here.
Good morning. Good morning.
I think we might just give it one more minute
No problem.
for folks to come in. I'm not sure if anyone else is actually joining us or just signed up to get the recording. So we'll see. We'll see. Otherwise, we'll just go through some information about the
Okay.
program. We're gonna dive in, want to be respectful of your time. Thanks so much for being here, Odette, and to anyone who's watching this recording later. Oh, we did get someone joining, just a second. All right, so this is the Source Service Scholars information session and Q&A. I'm Lydia Hickey. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm the Assistant Director of Source.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Janae Johnson, pronouns is she, her, hers, and I am the Assistant Director for the Academic Service Learning.
Can everyone just like thumbs up? Can you all hear us okay and see the screen? Okay, thanks. Perfect. We're also recording this, so we can send this out afterwards and can send you the slide deck so you can refer back to any of this information. Then obviously, if you think of questions later that we don't cover today or don't, come up today in the Q&A time, you can always reach out to us and let us know how we can help you. Okay, so we are going to dive into just a little bit more of an introduction for Source and our community engaged guiding principles. The most of the time we'll be spending today is just an overview of the Source Service Scholars program and some examples of projects to kind of get you started. We'll go through preceptor responsibilities and then the needs for the project proposal. And then we'll save time at the end for any questions on your mind. Do you want to start us out, Janae?
Yes, sure. So excuse me if I'm looking at my computer, there's a bit of a glare from this side and I'm a bit blind. So I will be still looking at the same exact slides. So a little bit about SOURCE and just the introductions as well. SOURCE's mission is to engage Johns Hopkins University, health professional schools, and Baltimore communities in mutual beneficial partnerships that promote health and social justice. Some of our values include reciprocity, justice, service, and collaboration. You may have heard these four values pretty frequently, but just want to make sure that we're revisiting those as well. As far as our guiding principles for Baltimore community engagement, SOURCE really wants to form a true partnership in their practice with service learning. So through shared vision and values, mutual respect, transparency and communication, shared decision-making and commitment, so that there is not just one person making all the decisions or one person that's kind of running things, but making sure that we have input from both sides, from whether you're a community partner or actually one of our scholars in the program as well. I didn't know you were there. Okay, service learning is more of a structured learning experience. I know people sometimes kind of compare it to experiential learning opportunities, but service learning is more of a mutual beneficial thing and not just one person or one side benefiting from it. So it's a combination of community service and preparation and reflection. So for example, it's not just like an internship where you have people filing papers or doing just simple day-to-day tasks, but actually engaging in meaningful work that will impact not only the student, but as well as the community and the community-based partner that we're working with. Students engaging service learning provide community service in response to community identified concerns, learning about the context, and then the connection between their service work and their academic coursework as well. So with the students working with community-based partners, we wanna, of course, understand what your needs are first. So they're not just going to come there doing random tasks. The first things first is to establish what are the needs of your organization and also the broader needs of the community as well. And then also connecting it back to some of the coursework that the students are also engaged in as well too.
All right, I can tag team in here for a moment and just cover some of the highlights of the SOURCE Service Scholars Program as a whole. So this is where we have students making a long-term commitment to one of our community-based organizations. So each student, we have up to 15 seats for this program. So each student would be giving 125 to 150 hours of service, August through May. So this averages out to about 3 to 4 hours per week throughout the entirety of the project. So that window that we give of August through May, some of that is dependent on your student and when they apply and kind of what program they're in. So for example, for this first window here of applications, students will be doing applications mid-February through mid-March. They'd be interviewing with our community-based organization partners at the end of March and would be notified in April. So there could be some capacity for them to actually start a little bit earlier than August. Particularly for our students from the School of Medicine, that might be desired actually, that just based on their academic year schedule, some of them might be interested in starting earlier than August because with their schedules, they'll probably actually end in April of 2026. For like our public health students, that August to May window is probably going to be more true to form. So that August to May window is kind of more of like a general guideline for what we're looking at the academic year. But as you're interviewing students and talking to them, you can find out a little bit more about like if they actually could start sooner, because some of them that might be in their best interest. They might want to dive in a little bit sooner than August. But keep in mind that they would be committing to about 3 to 4 hours a week. So it's not like you're hiring someone full-time. For them, this is really a part-time opportunity to engage with while they're also engaging in their studies. But it would be a long-term commitment for an entire academic year. And then this is open to students from the schools of public health, medicine, and nursing. For them, this is an opportunity where they would be essentially doing project management, where they would be taking on a project that's determined by you, our community partner, and then they would be recruiting and engaging a team of volunteers to assist them with that project. So they wouldn't be working alone. They are recruiting and engaging a minimum of 4 volunteers. But it depends on the project, because even some of the students that I'm working with right now who are in our 2024 to 2025 cohort, some of them are definitely engaging more than 4 students for volunteer needs. It's really dependent on what project the CBO is setting forth. So our CBOs, our community partners, when you're submitting that application, you would need to be outlining what the project would be, including what that volunteer role might be looking like as well. And then from your part, the student in that role would be, well, actually, excuse me, let me cover the source side first. So the student would be receiving training and guidance from source. They would be having a monthly learning session. It's about 3 hours a month. Where they are engaging with us in service learning theories and reflection practices, interprofessional core competencies, including values, ethics, roles, responsibilities, communications, teams work, and then as well, that final component that we discussed a moment ago of project management, volunteer recruitment, and delivering and reporting on outcomes, which can be really useful for you to, take that information as your student is wrapping up their academic year commitment. So this is delivered through scheduled service academy sessions. Those happen once a month for 3 hours. And then in addition to that, students have access to us as well. So Janae and I manage this program. We each split the cohort in half, and we provide consultations with those students, typically on a quarterly basis, but some students ask to meet with us more, and we're always available to support more as needed and as requested. Do you want to take over? We'll keep taking it in now.
So a little bit about the CBO application component. So it's aligned with the 5 community engagement guiding principles. So you're going to, of course, share a vision and values. You'll describe the CBO's mission. So what your mission is, how you're pretty much trying to orient scholars into the vision. And then as well as the unique approaches in social justice work. And you'll also complete our source preceptor modules, which is online, and then also share the feedback as well. So doing those modules is a requirement for all preceptors as well. For mutuality and respect, provide project guidance throughout the academic year. So again, it's not like an internship, like a one and done type of task, but also they are project managers. So making sure that you are supporting them throughout the duration of the project as well. Communicating regularly with source staff. So again, myself and Lydia, we are all here to support. Again, we do check in with the students on more of a quarterly basis, what they can do as needed. But with you all, we are always available. If I'm not available, Lydia may be available and vice versa. And then also collaborating with scholars on sustainable plans. So again, making sure that what you assign to them as a project is something that is going to be sustainable and also something that's going to be meaningful and have an impact on your community and also on the relationship as well. Transparency and communication. So again, the assigned primary and secondary preceptors for SSS is super important. So having those 2 reliable point of contacts is super important so that the service scholar does not feel that they are not having any guidance, any support. So if we have 2 people from you all's organization, that will be super helpful in making sure that we have support on all ends covered. Specify on-site, hybrid, or other formats of project collaboration. So do you want to have them work hybridly? Are they coming to your organization some days? Just making sure that that is clear from jump. okay, so you don't want to like commit to like, hey, it's going to be completely remote. And then all of a sudden they're kind of hit out of nowhere with, okay, I actually need to start coming in. So having those clear guidelines and guidance from the start will definitely be helpful in making sure that we're transparent. Making sure that transportation or any additional background or training needs are met as well. So if you know, like, hey, I do want to have this service scholar come in person, making sure that you figure out the transportation needs at that time. And depending on your organization, you may need to have additional background checks. Please make sure that those things are done in advance so that the students can get started on the project in a timely manner. And then shared decision making. So proposing responsibilities and service project deliverables and outcomes. Again, making sure that's very clear with the source service scholar, because again, this project is something that we'll see through from start to finish. So making sure there is sustainability there. Propose ideas possible for volunteer roles for projects. Again, each of the source service scholars are going to recruit between like 4 and 5 volunteers as well. So just making sure that whatever the project is, that it does incorporate the opportunity for volunteers to be incorporated too. And then commit to interviewing and ranking the SSS applicants. So once the applicants come through for the source service scholars, they'll be able to rank what organizations they want to work with in the order that they see fit. So making sure that you are assisting in those areas as well. And then commitment. So carefully reviewing the CBO preceptor expectations, and then committing to preceptor trainings, regular frequent engagement. So again, there is those modules that you all would be required to do as well. And then also making sure that you're checking in with Lydia and I where you see fit and where you need support. And then also with the scholars as well, verifying their hours. So they will use Hopkins Engage to track their hours. And then making sure that you're submitting the evaluations on time with the source service scholars as well. Okay, so the SSS project should be Baltimore focused. Again, it doesn't really specify whether or not it has to be a certain part, but just as long as it's Baltimore focused, social justice oriented, and collaboration, including options for on-site and hybrid. Sometimes on-site is, very convenient, but you also have to kind of consider that these are students as well. So incorporating some remote autonomy with those source service scholars too, and service engagement. So again, we do understand that it may be very helpful to have them in person as frequent as you would like, but we want to make sure that we do honor the fact that these are students first and that they also have some ability to be hybrid as well. All right, so this source service scholar should have a project that is typically an entire school year long. Supervise, mentor scholars throughout the completion of the collaboration. So from start to finish. Making sure that you all maybe even establish check-in periods. I know that some of the scholars that I'm helping advise at this point say that they have check-ins with their CBO. So I think that'd be really helpful as well to help with the communication throughout the duration of the school year. We have up to 15 source service scholars that'll be selected for this upcoming academic year. And then again, it's not designed to bring the students on as interns. So as I said earlier, not like just the basic, oh, let's do day-to-day tasks, but they're project managers. They're here to work on specific projects that you all are wanting them to engage in from start to finish. So, make sure that it is sustainable work, and then developing interpersonal leadership skills that will help them as students and also when they become professionals beyond.
So I can dive in a little bit more into what we mean by like intern versus project manager. So an intern might be someone who is assisting with regular program management activities, but the project manager is someone who is working on a specific project. So we do want, and you'll see in the proposal form, that you're coming up with a specific project idea that the student would be leading. An intern might be working on general tasks or assignments as given, things like maybe phone banking or filing, things like that. But the project manager role for this project is someone who's working on a mutually designed plan of action towards final deliverable. So when we say mutually designed, sometimes that's confusing because we get the feedback of like, well, wait, the CBO is determining the project. Yes. But you are having check-in points with your source service scholar, where you are both working on that plan of action together. So the project's determined by you. The student is working with you to determine how that will be carried out. The intern role might or might not involve others in the completion of the task. In this role as the project manager, our students are bringing in a team of volunteers that they're managing to move the project to completion. The intern role, the student occupies, the student occupies, changes and morphs as needed to complete the task and assignments as they arrive. The project plan and strategy morphs as needed to move the project to completion. So this is the other thing I talk with students and partners about. Flexibility can happen. The project plan can, be amended a little bit as you move forward. Like there definitely is flexibility there, but that's something that you're working with the student to determine any changes in the strategy or the project plan. CBO preceptors are expected to. So we always ensure that there are 2 points of contact at your organization. We say that there's a primary preceptor who is kind of the main person that would be in contact with source and with the student. But it's really, really helpful to have that secondary person. It does come up from time to time. Okay, maybe the primary preceptor has to go on medical leave or is taking some other kind of a leave of absence, or maybe there's been some like changes in structure at your organization and the primary preceptor can no longer oversee the student. That's why it's really, really helpful to have a secondary preceptor, even for really short things, just like, oh, this person's on vacation for a week. It's helpful for the student to have another point of contact, especially if they're going to site. That's always just a good idea. The next expectation, our primary preceptor is completing the online preceptor module. That is a pretty low lift activity. I think it takes maybe about an hour long, and we only expect the primary preceptor to complete it once every 3 years. So maybe if that person or you have acted as a preceptor for a different student working with source, either through the source service scholars program or from another student in another capacity, then you don't have to repeat it. And it's only up to once every 3 years. Along with that, we do have that orientation of scholars and volunteers expectation as well. And that in terms of like the lift level or the time expectation, that depends on what your organization requires for onboarding. But we do have an expectation that there's some kind of like introduction to your organization, some kind of onboarding to get your scholar acclimated. You'll be supervising your scholar and possibly any recruited volunteers over the term of the project. So you're establishing regular and frequent meetings with the scholar regarding the progress of the project. Some scholars and the preceptors meet, I would say bi-weekly tends to kind of be the norm. Like, every other week seems to be the norm, but, determine that with your scholar. You're providing guidance for them to complete their project within the academic year. So we do have 2 different touch points. We call them the work plans, where you're helping the scholar do that forward planning so that they can, make sure that they're planning ahead for every step and every deliverable of the project to finish it within the academic year. And you're working with the scholar on a sustainability plan so that, they are, once they're submitting that deliverable, that it's something that is a sustainable project that they can manage within 3 to 4 hours a week throughout the academic year. You do also complete a mid-year and final evaluation regarding the project. You confirm scholarly hours that are entered in Hopkins Engage, and then just, remain flexible. I think this is important. We always tell students to just remain highly in communication with their preceptor. They might have an exam week where they can't commit the full 4 hours that week, but could commit additional hours the next week. Those kinds of, that kind of flexibility might be needed.
Project examples. So here is some like workshop ideas that have been done before, and just some things that you can possibly incorporate as well. So the implementation of like health related curriculum or educational workshops is something that you could possibly have your source scholar working on as well. Community outreach. So partnering with different businesses or existing CBOs to develop like social media outreach or marketing activities. I know that we have a couple of scholars this semester as well that are working on increasing engagement on their CBO's social media accounts as well, because they know that they get a lot of traction if they gain attention on social media. So that is part of their project and what they're focused on. Advocacy, so designing and organizing awareness campaigns. So depending on your organization and what the needs are, possibly having advocacy towards those things as well, and having campaign ideas for your scholars to work on too. Program design, so maybe there is a new program that has needs, but hasn't really been developed. So maybe there is some needs for evaluating those things and how to be able to implement it when the time comes. That is an idea that could be used as well. And then service extension of your organization. So anything that's kind of like direct service needs, ongoing needs for an extended period, and it still supports the creation of volunteer management and training processes, completely fine as well. But again, just kind of understand that as long as it has something that's more sustainable and not just like okay, go file paperwork, go do these things that are actually a necessity to help your organization and the community to move forward in a beneficial mutual relationship, that is an awesome idea for you to go ahead and give your scholar to work on. So if you look here on the chart, there is a couple of examples as well, and kind of some insight on what the role of the scholar would be and the role of the volunteer would be. So again, your scholar would be recruiting about 3 to 4 volunteers to work with them as well. So for the first one, if we have implementation of health-related curriculum, so this part for the role of the scholar would be typically maybe to develop a plan, examine, recognize evidence based on curriculum, as well as possibly even doing some outreach to volunteers, conducting surveys, and doing like curriculum review. As well as possibly doing like some feedback on curriculum-based organizations, populations, and just kind of identifying needs by the volunteers. And the role of the volunteer in this instance would be possibly something kind of similar, but in a different capacity, such as examining the curriculum and its plan, doing some more research, so doing a little bit more digging. What are the best practices for us to be able to act on this project and to fulfill the needs of the project as well? Again, still surveying the client population to identify key issues. So identifying what the needs is of the population in which the organization is serving, and then compiling survey results. So again, it's always super important for our scholars and the volunteers to conduct feedback in order for them to move their project forward as well. Community outreach. So in the role of the scholar, researching organizations and businesses that may be a good fit for partnerships. So maybe there's potentially another Baltimore-based organization that's doing similar work that you all have done, or maybe even branching out into a different sector or initiative that you would like to do or like to incorporate with. They'd be able to do research in order for you all to possibly establish that partnership as well and developing the plan for it. As far as the role of the volunteer, they will conduct more of like the informational interviews with the businesses or nonprofits that you all could potentially have a partnership with as well. Next, we have advocacy. So in the role of a scholar, things such as developing that awareness campaign. So again, if there is certain components or avenues within your organization that you would want to explore and have campaigns for, that is something that the source scholar could work on as well. Helping with events and locations for the campaign. So maybe you're like, okay, I want to start this HIV campaign. Where can we have it? When can we do it? So figuring out the logistics of those campaigning ideas can be something that the source scholar works on as well. Again, social media strategy. Social media is at an all-time high to get attention. So if there is anything that you would need them to work on as far as engagement for your social media, they could do that as well. Creating engaging volunteers to help with logistics and marketing and staffing for the event. So again, the source scholar has volunteers to be able to help carry out the project as well. So making sure that there is projects that's being proposed that could also not just serve the scholar, but also service the volunteers as well. And then helping with grant writing for event materials and printing. So on the event that you all have more needs to be able to fulfill the project, do understand that the Source Scholar could help with making sure that grant writing is done as well. As far as a volunteer role, they would conduct outreach typically for the event location and setup. So maybe helping with promoting the event, getting it out to the community as well so that they're aware of the event coming up and where it will be taking place. And then also social media once again, so making sure they're campaigning for on social media for wherever the campaign is as well, getting attention, bringing attention to the event that's coming up. And then again, any logistics as far as the event too. As far as the service extension of your organization, such as capacity building, the volunteers could recruit events like in the high schools with service learning volunteers. So making sure that they're possibly getting some more help for your project as well too. And they can also help with training and orientation for high school volunteers. I know things can kind of be tricky with working with those in the K through 12 sector, as of course working with underage students is a little bit more to that as well, but these are things that the Source Scholar could kind of help figure out the logistics for too, and how you all should be able to navigate that. And then of course, reflection. This work is very important to also include reflection at all times. So to ensure that the reflection activities are going on with high school students. As far as the role as a volunteer, the volunteer could definitely work on locating local schools that would be interested in partnering with you all on different opportunities to do community work, and then also community school coordinators as well. The volunteers could also insist in working with orientations to do with the volunteers as well, and then leading reflection sessions. As I stated, reflection is an important component of all the work that we're doing. So your volunteers could also assist in that area as well.
All right, so Hopkins Engage, so our CBO partners do already have access to Hopkins Engage. Hopkins Engage does play a role in this project as well, so just want to make a plug for that. So Hopkins Engage is on the GivePulse platform. We have specifically a source subgroup that all of our community partners are added to. And if you don't have access or feel like you need assistance with that, just reach out to us with the name of the administrative user so that we can assist you. That administrative user should be someone who's typically handling volunteer internship recruitment, special events, etc. But once the SSS project is approved, the CBO should be willing to activate their Hopkins Engage profile and utilize its function to support their scholars and volunteers. So this can be really helpful if there's an event that's associated with the scholars project. Maybe it's an advocacy event or a fundraising event or something like that, that can be a way that we can promote is on that Hopkins Engage page. Hopkins Engage is also how we track our scholars' hours for the project. Currently, that's something that Janae and I oversee along with our federal work study student, Safa Khatun, if maybe some of you have met her before. So currently we oversee the students' hours that they post, but that's another reason why access to Hopkins Engage is helpful, because that is how we track student involvement in their projects. So we want to go through, I kind of gave like a brief overview of this earlier, but it can be really helpful to see it written down. And again, we'll send these slides out to you so you can refer back to this larger timeline at any moment. But right now, our application window, our call for proposals is open. So the deadline is February 5th at midnight. The following week, Janae and I, and like I mentioned, Safa, our federal work study student, possibly we might be following up with our applicants to, clear up any questions we have, or, maybe nail down any loose ends, things like that. But you'll receive a notification on your final proposal acceptance on or before February 12th. Once those proposals are completely nailed down, then that's when we open our recruitment window for students to apply to your proposals. And we manage that proposal, we manage that application process. So we have a month window where students apply, and when they apply, they list specifically which CBO partners they want to work with. So they can kind of rank like, this is my first choice, this is my second choice. But we do that particularly because we want students to be applying for a specific project that they're interested in and where their experience is aligned. Because all of our proposals from our community partners are going to be very different in terms of what they're asking for. We want students to be applying specifically for the area where their interests and their experience are most aligned. The final deadline for students to apply is Friday, March 21st. After that point, our internal admissions team, so our source team members will be reviewing the applications. We will narrow down the applications for you to the top candidates for each project. Typically, we'll give you about 3 to 4 candidates per project. That's just something that we do to help you, because sometimes you can get literally up to like 20 or 30 applicants per project, which is amazing to have that level of interest. And that can also be overwhelming possibly for our partners. So we kind of do an initial review round where we're narrowing that down for you to the top applicants for that project. After that point, you must be interviewing those candidates. So you can choose if you're doing that in person, Zoom, phone, etc. But you are interviewing the candidates for that position. And then you're ranking them for us in order of your first, second, etc. Choice for who you want to come and partner with you for the entire academic year. April 18th, so the preceptors are reporting the rank of orders. You're reporting the rank of your student orders. And students are as well, because, you know, in the case, this doesn't happen too often, but in case there is a student who is interviewing with 2 organizations, maybe they were ranked very highly by 2 different organizations, they could be interviewing with 2 organizations. So students are also reporting their rank orders of preferred placement sites. Summer 2025, if the preceptor hasn't already done so previously within the last 3 years, they're completing that online preceptor module. Again, it's only about an hour long. And then at that point, students can either begin their projects in the summer, or they would be starting in the fall at the latest. And that's when you begin having your sessions with that scholar. Like I said, what's most common is twice a month, but kind of depends on you and the student and the project, what works best for you for setting up a cadence for meeting. We do also typically each year in the fall, for one of our sessions, we do invite preceptors to join us so that you have time to work with the student on your project as well. And then in April or May of 2026, we do like a final celebration and appreciation event where students can share the outcomes of their project as well. But this is the entire timeline for application and the actual project itself. Okay, frequently asked questions we can go through. And I actually do want to add one here too. So one question that we get is, if my organization has had a source service scholar in the past or even has one currently, am I eligible to apply? Yes. So we do have partners that do the source service scholar program multiple times. That is totally fine. You do have to have a different project though. So you can't do the same project back to back, or can't you do the same project repeated from a few years ago. You do have to have a new project that you're proposing, but we are happy to invite partners to come back to the Source Service Scholar if you've done it in the past or have a scholar there currently. Other frequently asked questions. Let's see. The first one, my proposed project is really for one student internship project. Is that suitable for a Source Service Scholar project? I would say if you're not sure if your project aligns with this program, I would say talk to us. Let us know if you want to meet and we can help you kind of mold that and see if there's a way that we can find a good fit. Based on the wording of this of like internship, I would say we would really encourage you to change the project to make sure that it's really project management and not kind of those like intern volunteer experiences. We would not have a student do things like filing or just like those kind of day-to-day office tasks. We do want to be a project that they can engage with long-term. But if you're unsure if what you're thinking of matches the needs of this program, call us or set up time with us. We're happy to nail that down. Oh, this question is listed here. That I've had a Source Service Scholar in the past. Can I apply for one again? Yes. Why do we need 2 preceptors from our organization? I did cover this earlier. If someone unexpectedly needs to go on medical leave or capacity changes in the organization, or even if someone just takes a 1-week vacation, if you do have a scholar who's coming to site, has questions, it can just be really, really helpful to have that backup person to assist. How many hours per week would the scholar work? And will they be working a regular schedule? So hours per week is about 3 to 4 hours per week. And a regular schedule, that's up for you to determine with the student. Some sites prefer a regular working schedule. I would say have a little bit of flexibility though, because each semester the students' classes will change, which means their time changes. So you do need to have some check-in points to discuss if their schedule changes. And like I said, you know, it is helpful to have flexibility for things like if an exam is coming up or something like that. But that just goes back to our values of open communication. Have those conversations with your scholar. I'm a busy professional. How much supervision is needed of the scholar? Some of this depends on the project, the scope of your project. But I would say that you should be meeting with your scholar at least twice a month is ideal. And then you need to be available if they're emailing you and asking you some questions. Either you or the secondary preceptor does need to have that availability to answer questions. So I would say that you need to have at least a few hours a month to be able to dedicate to this project. Again, it does kind of depend on the scope of the project, how much like hands-on time you would need to be providing. Oh, I apologize. Yes. Okay, so we want to provide some more just like open Q&A time. Anyone call any questions that you have or needs from us that we can help with?
Hi, I do have a question. Um, I'm wondering about, well, first of all, my organization has a need for document translation, and I'm wondering about your one-time service projects or one-time like project help. Is there anything like that for source scholars or in the program generally?
Yeah, so I think that that might not necessarily match this program, but we do have a database of language volunteers. So I would say the best way to get language volunteer support is to email source@jhu.edu and just tell us a really specific description of what you need and how often you need it and what language. And then we can do some matchmaking with our language volunteer database. The one thing I will say is we don't do clinical translation. So if it's like clinical documents or if it's, you know, clinical in-person translation, that's the one thing that we don't provide. But if it's like for documents or evaluations or surveys or things like that, we definitely can help connect you. That might not be the best match for this program because we are looking for like a project management situation. However, as an example, like I do have a source service scholar right now who's working on like a larger systems evaluation for one of our community partners, and they are recruiting volunteers to help do some translation for the evaluation. So that's not the project itself, but it ended up being part of the volunteer needs of the program. So if you are just looking for translation, that might not be the best match for this project. But if there's a way that you can think about it more holistically, where language translation might wrap into like a larger project need, then we can absolutely talk about that for service scholars. Does that help, Quincy?
Yeah, definitely. I think that in our program, we need some help with legal document translation. So I'm not
Okay.
sure how that, correlates to the resource you gave me, but I'll definitely, excuse me, I'll definitely email and find out.
Perfect.
And for the project for the source scholar, we're looking at something around childcare and our diaper closet,
Okay.
and trying to get that organized and maybe find somebody to help with that. Uh,
Okay.
but that's just a consideration right now. There's definitely a lot of projects that we could use
Okay.
a source scholar on. But I also wanted to ask about one more thing. You mentioned that the proposal was really what the students are looking at. Um, what is a successful proposal look like? And is there any like particular section that's more popular? Like is advocacy or community engagement more popular?
That is a great question. So I'm thinking about the projects that I have this year. And so we had space for 15 projects. We did have 15 proposals that went out and we only filled 14 of them. The 15th never was filled because that partner was asking for someone who was fluent verbal and written Spanish. And so we just didn't find a student that matched that need exactly. So that's why we didn't fill that 15th space. So that's another thing I do want to say too, is like we can never guarantee filling that space. We'll do our best to find a student who matches your need. But if there is something really specific, like fluent in a specific language, we can never promise that. But out of the 14 projects that we have this year, it really covers kind of a myriad of things. We do have some that are advocacy focused. We do have some that are curriculum focused. I have one that's social media focused, one that's event planning, one that's fundraising. So that's like the really exciting thing about this program that I think is one of the reasons why students are drawn to it, because they're applying for something that the community is asking for specifically. We go based off of the community need, not based off of like something that we're coming up with. And then students choose and apply to which program they're interested in. I know that all 14 of those projects, like I said, the 15th project that required certain language skills was kind of an outlier just because we didn't have a student who applied who had that language proficiency that was needed. But of the 14 other projects, I know that they all had more than 4 applicants per project. And there were quite a few of them that had like 20 or 30 applicants per project. I will say, I think the ones that did end up being like a little more quote unquote popular in terms of the number of applications were like the advocacy and evaluation based projects. I think that those ones seem to be like most interesting for students. But yeah, we did have applications for all 15 of the projects, and all of them were very, very different in terms of the ask, which is the really interesting thing about this program in particular, is that like you can really go based off of something that you need, as long as it's a project that a student could commit to working on for an extended period of time.
Hi. Is there a length or suggested length for this? to submit your proposal. And then also, are you guys, I know in the past, in proposal, you guys have given feedback.
Yeah.
Are you guys still able to give feedback
Yes.
prior to the due date?
Yes. So I'll answer that second question first, Odette. So that's why we do have a built-in window here, where your application is due February 5th. But then we do have built in a few days of turnaround time for us to be able to review your proposals and to be able to support you, because sometimes there is like a proposal that's like a really good idea, but we'll just have a couple of questions on like, oh, can you tell us more about like what you're thinking about the volunteer component would look like? Or this sounds like a really great project, but maybe it's not enough that we could see a student working on for an entire academic year. So how can we expand on that? So that's something that Janae and I definitely will be supporting proposals with. I mean, there might not need any edits made, but we definitely, we never will just like receive a proposal and just like throw it out immediately and say like, nope, doesn't fit. Like we definitely want to work with you to find something that's really helpful for your organization, but would also be engaging for our students for an entire academic year commitment. So that's where we might have some feedback loops of like, oh, how can we expand on this idea? So we'll definitely support you in that way. And then in terms of length of application, let me find, actually, if you want, you can see. We have the QR code here, and again, we're sending this out to you afterwards. But in terms of like the length of the application, so there are some like quick and easy questions about like, tell us who you are, the name of your organization, what your organization's focus is, who would be the primary preceptor. So we do have some of those like quicker questions. And then there's, I think, probably like 5 or 6 questions that might be like a paragraph long.
Okay.
Answer. It's not something, this is not a grant proposal. This is not something that like is that kind of length. So yeah, do you have anything to add to that? Like, this is definitely not like grant proposal.
Okay, it's like the previous ones. I just want to make sure because the length of time is longer, so I thought maybe it might require more.
No.
Gotcha. Okay.
So yeah, we have 2 rounds, so that's the only reason why it kind of looks longer. We push the timeline up, but it is like you go to Qualtrics, it's a fill in the blank type thing, but it's not like you're going to go to Microsoft and let's make this on my own. No, nothing like that.
Okay.
Yeah. Awesome. Any other questions? All right, well, I'll take that as time to wrap up. So thank you so much for being here. This was recorded and we'll send the slides out afterwards. And then like I mentioned, like Quincy too, like I know you were saying that like your organization has a few ideas that you're simmering on. Let us know if you want help with that, or help kind of honing in on an idea. We're happy to have those conversations. Or if you think of any different questions that we haven't covered today, just reach out to us and let us know how we can help you. But that's all we've got for today. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Have a good day.
You'll have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thanks.